Gone back. Well, joining me is a man who knows everything about the universe, the astrophysicist, author of the new book Starry Messenger, Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization, the great Neil deGrasse Tyson rejoins me. Neil, and what a wonderful waistcoat, if I may start with that.
Oh, thank you. I don't want to show off or anything, but...
Now, look, why have we not gone back to the moon
Across the pond, we call it a vest.
A vest. Well, it's a lovely vest.
Across the pond, we call it a vest.
Why have we not gone back to the moon in 50 years?
I have my own reasons for thinking so. I'm happy to share them with you. When we first went to the moon, we have to remind ourselves why. All right? There's been a lot of cleansing of the memory of the motivator, of what motivated us to do it in the first place. It was in response, it was reactive to the Soviet Union. They beat us in practically every space metric that mattered over that time. They had the first satellite, the first mammal, which was Laika the dog, the first human. They had the first woman, the first dark-skinned person. It was a black Cuban. Remember, Cuba was, of course, part of the Soviet Empire, or friends with them. And so they had so many firsts that we didn't, that we said, all right, what are we gonna do? Let's go to the moon. And so by the time we got to the moon and realized Russia actually isn't headed there, it took some of the steam out of sort of the militaristic motivations that got us there in the first place. Allow me to remind you that this Apollo 17 was the first mission to the moon to have a scientist on it. And by the way, it was the last mission to the moon.
Right.
So we tell ourselves we're explorers, discoverers, and it was really about flexing muscle on a geopolitical.
Well, now there's a kind of
landscape.
counter narrative to that exploring aspect. Because I remember when I was a kid watching these rockets go off from Cape Canaveral and feeling so enthralled, and the world used to watch these things. And now it seems like we've gone backwards, a bit like air travel. Air travel on Concorde used to be London and New York in 2 hours, 58 minutes. Now it takes twice as long. I don't understand how have we gone backwards in these things. Prince William, though, Prince William criticised space tourism and travel. He said this.
The idea that this space race is on at the moment, we've seen everyone trying to get space tourism going. It's the idea that we need some of the world's greatest brains and minds fixed on trying to repair this planet, not trying to find the next place to go and live.
What do you make of that, Neil? You know, the argument that we've got climate change, we've got real pressing problems here, therefore we should suspend all exploration off the planet until we save this one.
Yeah, I don't like bad-mouthing royals, but if you allow me a moment to do so, let's go back 30,000 years. Let's go back 30,000 years. We're all living in a cave, and you have the cave elders, the wise elders in the back, and then you have some young whippersnapper youngins who they peer out the cave door. This cave door has hinges, apparently, in my example, but they move the rock and they look out and they see mountains and valleys and streams and trees with fruit on them. And they go to the cave elders and say, we'd like to go explore. And the cave elders say, no, we have cave problems that we have to solve first in the cave before you exit the cave and see what else is out there. That's what people sound like to me when they say, we have problems on Earth, let's solve them first before we go outside of the Earth, without recognizing that, by the way, your smartphone can find grandma's house in traffic because of a system of satellites launched into space. You have full active video tracking of hurricanes and storms and tsunamis, okay, from images taken from space. So to say space is something other than what you should care about, just move back to the cave, because that's kind of where you belong.
How important is somebody like Elon Musk with SpaceX, particularly with the satellites, of course, which have been used, for example, in Ukraine to help them in this war against Russia? What do you think of Musk and what he's doing in this area?
Yeah, so Musk, I think one of the biggest contributions he's making is he's trying to drive down the cost of access to space. That's sort of a slightly buried objective here. Buried, not that anyone's purposefully burying it, they're just not noticing that this is an important driver. Because if you can take down the cost, then other kinds of activities can then unfold in space, such as space tourism. By the way, let's think about it. I don't know the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but I can imagine a future where space tourism is routine. It becomes commoditized, and you save up a few vacation paychecks, and that'll get you into space. You know people will line up and want to do that. And there's nothing like seeing Earth from space. It is not the color-coded countries that were drawn on your schoolroom globe. You see Earth as nature had intended you to see, with oceans and lands and clouds. That can change you just by being a tourist in space. So no, I'm not with the people who are saying, don't do that, let's stick to Earth.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if you use that kind of logic, you never do anything, because there's always something more important that stops you doing something fun. You made some predictions on American television very recently about what would happen by 2050. Two of them I thought were quite likely. Self-driving electric vehicles, yep, I think we're going to get that, pretty well are. A visiting alien to Earth, yep, I think that's highly likely by 2050. But the second one, or the third one on this list, humans will have the ability to regenerate their limbs. That was a real little eye-popper for me. Are we going to really be able to do that?
Okay, well, so let me put that in context. That appears in the book's chapter called Exploration and Discovery, and I go through 150 years of the exponential growth of discovery and the role that science and technology plays in shaping civilizations. And practically everybody predicting at the beginning of each 30-year period got it wrong. Yeah, that you can make linear predictions and maybe some of that work, but what typically happens is a discovery comes in from the side, from above, from below.
Why do you think limbs? Why limbs?
Limbs. Okay, no, I'll tell you why. So again, so I gave my predictions so that in 2050 people could laugh at how wrong they were. Just put that. That's why I gave the predictions. So I said, let me just try it. So why limbs? Because you and I are approximately the same age. We learned biology in an era where we said the tree of life, humans are at the top, and we are the pinnacle of evolution. I remember hearing biologists say that, and teachers teach that. Excuse me, it was white men were at the top of the evolutionary, that depending on which textbook you use. And I think to myself, suppose, this is what a cosmic perspective does to you, suppose some other animal made that same chart. If newts made that chart, they would say, we're at the top because we can regenerate limbs. And they would pity humans on the evolutionary scale because we can't.
All right, Neil.
Eagles would say, we're at the top.
I get it. So we've got 20 seconds left.
All I'm saying is that
20 seconds.
I'm just saying because regenerating limbs exists in the genome of other animals, and we're all related genetically. Okay? All animals on Earth have common DNA. So take a snip of that, tuck it in us, bada bing, line up the veterans first.
I'm going to get you back on in 2050 to see if you're right about this. But Neil, we've run out of time. I could talk to you all night. Thank you. You're always fantastic. I appreciate you coming on.